So, namaskar everybody, and welcome to the Geeta Satsang for today. Let us get started with the prarthana. By the Guru's grace and the will of Sri Krishna, we have all assembled for this Geeta Satsang. May we have their guidance to be able to learn and adopt the things which will help us to grow spiritually. Let us chant the shlokas. Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsachanuramardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum Krishnaya Vasudevaya Haraye Paramatmane Pranatah Kleshanashaya Govindaya Namo Namaha Namostute Vyasa Vishala Buddhe Pullara Vindaya Tapatra Netra Yena Tvaya Bharata Taila Purnaha Prajvalito Jnanamaya Pradipaha Ramanujadaya Patram Jnana Vairagya Bhushanam Srimadvenkatanathaaryam Vande Vedanta Deshikam Yo Nityamachyuta Padambuja Yugma Rugma Vyamohatastaditarani Trinaya Mene Asmadgurur Bhagavatosya Dayaika Sindhoho Ramanujasya Charanau Sharanam Prapadye. So, with prayers at the lotus feet of the Acharyas, let us start with our satsang for today. So, we have completed the 38th shloka in the last satsang. So, today we will take up the 39th shloka. We will only see one shloka today. So, in this, Lord Krishna is continuing to explain to Arjuna. So, in the 39th shloka, he says, Esha te bhihita sankhye buddhir yoge tvimam shrunu buddhya yukto yaya partha karma bandham prahasyasi. So Krishna is telling Arjuna, until now, so far, I have explained to you what is called as Sankhya Yoga. That is understanding or getting knowledge about the Atma's nature in an analytic way. That means by using the buddhi, analyzing and understanding the nature of the Atma. Now listen, O Partha, because I'm going to take you to the next stage. I will reveal to you what is called as Buddhi Yoga, the yoga of the intellect or Buddhi. When you work with this understanding, when you understand what is Buddhi Yoga and you work with that intellect, you will be freed from the bondage of karma. You will perform the actions, but you will be not bound by that karma. So that is what is being told by Krishna, that so far I told you about Sankhya Yoga. Now I'm going to tell you about Buddhi Yoga. And why that is required? Because when you work with Buddhi Yoga, you will not get bound by any action. I mean, your karma, your actions will not result in any bondage. So you will not get papa or punya from those actions. So here we should understand a little bit in detail what is this Sankhya Yoga. So there is this word Sankhya comes from Sam and Kya. So what it is the knowledge which is complete. So total knowledge of the nature of the Atma and of the Deha, which is based on a process of analyzing with the Buddhi. So in these shlokas, from the 12th shloka of this second chapter until the shloka we saw last time, the 38th chapter, Lord Krishna explained in detail about the Atma, about the Deha, and also about why it is important for Arjuna to fight as a Kshatriya. So now what he is going to do? He is going to teach Arjuna that he must be using his buddhi to do the next stage of action. Now, we may wonder here that what is Arjuna's biggest problem now here? He has come to the battlefield. The armies have assembled on both sides. And now when it is time to fight, Arjuna is saying, I will not fight. I'm not going to participate in this fight. He's putting down his Gandiva and he's sitting dejected. So when this is the situation, why Krishna is spending so much precious time in trying to explain to Arjuna about Atma, Deha, Karma, Papa, Punya, all these things? What is the relevance of Lord Krishna's explanation to the problem being faced by Arjuna? This is what we need to understand. So the acharyas explain here that now we need to understand why is it that Arjuna doesn't want to fight. Arjuna has said he doesn't want to fight, but to give a solution to that, you need to understand why he is saying that, so that based on that you can provide him the right food for thought to think and process and understand why he should fight. So what Krishna is trying to explain here, Arjuna doesn't want to fight. Why is Arjuna not wanting to fight? Because he has this misunderstanding. He thinks that in the war, his arrows will go and kill Bhishma, Drona, and all the other Kauravas, our own people. It will kill them. So now Arjuna has this misunderstanding. What is the misunderstanding? That if he um, wounds these people with his arrows, they are going to die. So he is assuming that death is the final thing. So he is not looking at it from the point of view of that the deha is different, atma is different. Deha is impermanent, it is temporary, whereas the atma is nitya. So Krishna wants to clear that misunderstanding. Arjuna thinks body and atma are one and the same. So Krishna wants to clear that misunderstanding and make Arjuna understand that body is different and atma is different. Body is temporary, atma is permanent. Your arrows may kill and destroy the body, but they can never destroy the atma because the atma is not affected by anything. So this Arjuna has to be understanding first. So in the first level, Lord Krishna has tried to explain to him that the atma is different from the deha. Now, as we go further, Lord addresses the next thing in Arjuna's mind. Now, Arjuna is saying that, okay, I don't want to fight in this war because I am not at all bothered about what happens, whether we win or we lose, whether we get riches or we are left in poverty, whether I am becoming Raja or I have to go and sit in the forest. I am not at all bothered by all that. I have no interest in this Raja. He has made this statement previously. In the first chapter, Arjuna has been, when he's been explaining his reasons for dejection, he's been talking. He says, I have no absolutely any interest in this Raja, in winning and all that. What is the use of all that? Our own people will be killed and so on. So now the next intention of Lord Krishna is to explain to Arjuna that you don't fight for these petty things. Yes, what Arjuna feels is correct, that winning the war, getting power and status, getting the Rajya, enjoying all the Sukha by becoming Raja, all those are indeed inferior levels of happiness for somebody like Arjuna. But then what is the superior goal? If these are not good goals for Arjuna to have, then what are the goals that he should have? What should be the motivation for Arjuna to fight? That Krishna explains to him that you don't fight for the Rajya, you don't fight for Sukha, you don't fight for victory in the war, but you fight for moksha. As a Kshatriya, fighting in a Dharma Yuddha is your path to moksha. So, with that superior goal in mind, you fight. Now, if you die in the war, definitely you will get moksha because you have done your dharma correctly. But if suppose you don't, uh, lose your life in this war, you will live, you will become Raja, you will enjoy all the riches, and at the end of that time, after your death, you will get moksha. So you have to keep your mind fixed on the superior goal, which is getting moksha. And that is why you have to fight. Now, again, in the middle, there is Arjuna's doubt that, okay, you are telling I have to fight for getting moksha, but we know that killing somebody else is a wrong thing. We know that himsa is wrong. Then how will I get moksha? Will I not get papa because of this action of killing my own kinsmen? That is the doubt that Arjuna has at the next level. So then Krishna is now going to explain to him that how Arjuna should be fighting, with what spirit he should do the act of fighting, so that his actions do not attract any papa. So to be able to do that fighting in such a way that he does not get bonded by papa, Arjuna has to practice detachment. He has to fight without thinking that he is the one fighting. He has to fight without seeking some personal benefit out of that fight. He has to fight because it is the Lord's instruction to fight. He has to fight because it is his path to get moksha. He has to fight because this is what is his dharma as a kshatriya, and doing that is the right path for him. And how he should do this fighting with detachment, that explanation is what is Karma Yoga. That is what is going to come in the further shlokas as the Lord explains to Arjuna. He is going to tell him step by step what Arjuna should be doing in order to act so that his action is no longer just karma or mere action, but it becomes karma yoga, or it becomes the path to take him free from the bondage, to take him to moksha. So this is what Lord wants to explain. So he's telling Arjuna here that so far I talked to you about Sankhya Yoga. Now I'm going to tell you about Buddhi Yoga. So far we saw that there is difference between Atma and body. Now I'm going to tell you how you should act so that you don't get bound by papa from action of fighting with all your relatives. So here there are certain things that we need to pay attention from our point of view, right? So when we'll come to that, whatever I have written first a little later. Now, knowledge and action, both these, right? Knowledge is jnana and actions are karma. So both these are required as a prerequisite if somebody has to perform bhakti. Now, ultimately, it is bhakti which is going to take us to moksha. But for that bhakti, what should be the nature of that bhakti? How will it come in us? It will come only when we have a combination of jnana and karma. That is what the acharyas explain. So, here the example is given, like suppose, let us say, I want to drive a car. Now, when I want to drive a car, there are two things that are required. One is I should have a thorough knowledge about how the car operates. I should know what lever I have to press to make the car start. I need to know what I have to do to make it go faster. I need to know what to do to make it stop. So that jnana, that knowledge I should have. Second, is it enough to only have the knowledge? If I have all the knowledge about driving the car and I simply sit in that driver's seat and I just sit there doing nothing, will the car move? It will not. So for that, I need to perform the action. If I want to start the car, I need to turn the key in the ignition. I need to then press the accelerator. If I want to stop, I have to put my feet on the brake, right? So like this, I need to do some action to get the car to move or stop. So in the same, that means what? If the ultimate purpose is moving the car, then both knowledge and action are required. So in this janma which we have got, in this Manushya janma which we have got, and we have got some satsanga, what is our purpose? That we want to move ourselves to moksha. So if we want to attain moksha, then what is required for us? We need jnana. We need to have knowledge about all these aspects. What is the deha? What is the atma? How is their swarupa different? What will happen if I do a particular way? I need to understand all those things. So I need jnana. And along with that, only having the knowledge is not going to be enough. I need to also perform the actions. So if you have both these together, when you have jnana and you have karma, and you are doing both of them with the intention of getting moksha, then that becomes jnana yoga and that becomes karma yoga. And the combination of these two is going to culminate in bhakti yoga. And through that bhakti yoga only, you are going to attain the Lord's lotus feet. So this is what we need to pay attention. Now, first we have to understand what is the understanding, what is the jnana we should have, that Atma is Nitya. Atma is different from Deha. And the eternal nature of the Atma means that it has been there in so many janmas past. It is there now. It is going to be in many janmas later, unless we cut this cycle of birth and death and we move to moksha. So understanding that is the jnana that we have to attain. And then once we have this jnana, we go to the next step, the acharyas explain, saying that this atma is not swatantra. It is not an independent entity. It is wholly dependent on the paramatma. It is paradhina. It is not swatantra, it is paratantra. So it is dependent not on itself, but its dependence is on the Paramatma. Now, when you understand this, you understand that Atma and body are different. Then you understand that this Atma is dependent on the Paramatma. After we get to this stage, we will develop an interest in actually doing bhakti. So we need to have this jnana, and along with that, we need to understand how to actually perform that action. So that is what Krishna is going to start explaining to Arjuna. Now, in the meantime, this thing, now for us, how we can try to cultivate this understanding, how we can perform the actions, or what should we do? What kind of actions should we be doing in order to get to bhakti and moksha? So, in the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, there is one very nice conversation which is explained between the Rishi Yagnavalkya and his spouse, his wife called Maitreyi. Now, this Rishi Yagnavalkya had two wives. One was called Katyayani and the other one was Maitreyi. So, this Rishi had a lot of, over the years, he had a big ashram, he had many shishyas, they had many cows in their ashramas, they had a certain amount of property that had been developed, and they had all those assets. So, now at one point of time, this Yagnavalkya Rishi decides that he is now had enough of all this and he is going to retire from the Grihastha. So he decides that he wants to take sannyasa. So now there are people who are dependent on him. His spouses are there, his shishyas are there. So he has to make arrangements for them. So that is what the Shastra say, that if somebody wants to take sannyasa, he should be making arrangements for the people who are with him, who are dependent on him. So these two spouses are there. So he talks to them and he explains to them that I am going to retire from the Grihastha life. I am going to take sannyasa. So I'm going to divide up all my property to you, Katyayani, and to you, Maitreyi. So he lays out some terms saying that he will divide like this to Katyayani and Maitreyi. So Katyayani, she accepts. She says, okay, fine, you do whatever has to be done. And she's quiet with that. She's satisfied with that. Now this Maitreyi is of a totally different nature. So she asks her husband, she asks Rishi Yagnavalkya, she says, all this what you are giving me, is that going to give me eternal joy? Is that going to give me security which is of a permanent nature? Is that always going to be with me? Is that going to make sure that I don't suffer from any unhappiness in my life? The minute he hears this question, the Rishi knows that she is asking something else. He says, no, this thing, this property, these assets, they are not of a permanent nature. They cannot give you joy and happiness. They cannot give you ananda. They cannot ensure that you are always secure. And that is not what will be serving the purpose of your life. So then, sorry, excuse me. So then this Maitreyi asks him, then what is the use of me taking all these things from you? Don't give me all this. Give me that knowledge which you have. Teach me also, just like you know what is the reality of life, just like you know how we have to lead our life so that we are always in a state of happiness. Teach me that knowledge. I also want to learn that. And then this Yagnavalkya Rishi explains in a series of, shlokas, he explains to Maitreyi what is the real nature of this life, what is the purpose of this life, how does somebody get caught up in the cycle of birth and death. What is it that we think of when we say my husband, my child, my wife, my family, my property? What is the ultimate reality? All these things he explains. And in the process of that explanation, this shloka comes in the middle. So it says, Atma vare drashtavyaha shrotavyo mantavyo nididhyasitavyaha. So he's explaining to Maitreyi that one must make efforts. One must endeavor for what? To realize the Paramatma, to understand what is the nature of the Atma and the Paramatma. And for that, what we need to do? We need to do Drashtavya, Shrotavya, Mantavya, Nididhyasitavya. So actually the order is different. When you say Drashtavya, you need to be able to see that reality. You need to hear about the Lord. You need to see the Lord. You need to contemplate on him. So actually when we start our sadhana, Drashtavya, that seeing the Lord will not come first for us. But in the shloka, it is presented in that order. But for us, what comes first is the Shrotavya part. We need to hear. The Shravanam part is what comes first for us. So we need to hear about the glories of the Lord. We need to hear his Leelas. We need to hear stories from the Ramayana, the Mahabharata, Bhagavatam. And we need to listen with total and complete attention. That is the first stage. Once we do that, once we have listened and listened and listened, then at some point of time we have to start doing mananam. That mananam is to keep reflecting on what we have heard. Not only you listen, but you keep trying, revise that part. You keep thinking about it, right? That is mananam. And then you need to have nididhyasanam. So nididhyasanam means an even deeper contemplation. Mananam, contemplation, is just reflecting and trying to remember and recall and think of those things which you have heard about the Lord. But in the next stage, you have to try and imbibe those things into yourself in such a way that your actions start being guided by those principles that the Lord has talked about. So, like this, when we keep doing, when we do Shravana, we do Manana, we do Nididhyasana, we do complete meditation on the Lord's qualities and gunas and his leelas, then we will be having darshan of the Lord. So if you remember the story of the child Dhruva, he kept chanting the mantra. First he heard, he listened to the instructions given by Narad Rishi. Then he kept doing manana and nididhyasana, and then finally he had darshan of the Lord. So also for us, we are now studying the Bhagavad Gita. We are listening to these explanations given by the acharyas. So one thing is we listen, we participate in the satsang, we listen. Now after that, we have to not just listen and leave it like that, but we have to pay, give little more time, try to reflect on those things which are explained in the satsang, and contemplate on it more and more deeply. If we keep doing this over a period of time, we will come to a final stage where there will be a much deeper meditation on those aspects, and those concepts will get imbibed into our whole life itself. So that is what we must try and do. So now we are in the stage where we are still listening. We need to go to the next levels of trying to reflect on this, seeing how it applies to my life, and trying and leading our life based on these principles. So this is what Lord Krishna has been trying to explain to Arjuna. That in the first shlokas of this chapter, he has been trying to tell what is the difference between Atma and Deha. And now he is saying, I have explained all that to you, and now I'm going to tell you that you have to perform action. What action you have to perform, how you have to perform that action, how you should act so that you don't get caught up by karma, so that you are not affected by the papa from having fought. That you have to learn, and how to do that is what is Karmayoga. And that is what Lord Krishna is going to explain to Arjuna in the next few shlokas. So we will take up those things in the next satsang. So for today, we will stop here and think about all these aspects that we have talked of today. So now we have come to the end of our satsang. Let us offer our gratitude. Let us offer Kritagnyata at the lotus feet of Sri Krishna and Guru for inspiring us to start and join this satsang. And let us pray for their blessings and grace to always be on us. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining to the satsang. We will catch up again next Thursday. Namaskar.